Chapter 2.
I'm Eric Cargill.
And I'm Rachel Elnar, and this is Cheers and Tears.
Design Leadership Tales Retold.
How are you doing, Eric?
I'm doing well. How are you, Rachel?
Good. You know,
Good.
we have two creative and community powerhouse as our guests. Jenn is the Associate Dean and Full Professor at Cleveland State University, and her design work has been celebrated in How, Print, and Communication Arts. She's co-authored 4 internationally distributed books with her husband, Ken, including the Information Design Handbook, and we're thrilled to have her expertise and infectious energy with us. Justin is the brand strategist and chief creative officer of Rule 29, a certified B Corporation where he's helped everyone from scrappy startups to Fortune 50 companies tell their stories and grow their impact. He's a TEDx speaker, podcast host of Design of and Creative Shit Show, and created world-changing initiatives like Wheels for Water, which brought clean water to over 20,000 people in Africa. We could not be more excited to dive into both of their insights today. Please welcome Jenn Visocky O'Grady and Justin Ahrens.
Woo!
Thank you.
Woo! Thanks for being here, guys.
Oh, it's so good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Of course. You know, I know you through AIGA and have seen you on stage and seen you in conferences, but we're really going to just dig deep and see what leadership retreats you've both been to, kind of dig into the stories, find out what you've learned from your time in leadership with AIGA, just to give the audience a little more information about both of you in terms of your relationship to AIGA and your leadership experience in AIGA. Jenn, could you tell us a little bit about your experience with the chapters?
Yeah, I think I was trying to list it all out because I feel like I was an AIGA lifer just for like a very long time, involved in lots of ways. So I think I probably attended some AIGA events as a student at Kent State when I was there. And then when I started teaching at Cleveland State, it was a very small program and it started with me, and it was a concentration of design in an art department. And I wanted to bring more design expertise than I could as one faculty member. So I started a student chapter. And so AIGA Cleveland State still has a student chapter 20 some years later. I got involved with the local board in Cleveland, and I think I first got involved as the design education chair because that made the most sense. And then I wrangled Ken, my husband, onto the board too because it was easier for us to do things together because it was a lot of time away. And so I think between he and I, we served in every board position, and eventually I made it to the presidency of AIGA Cleveland. From there, Ken and I were both involved on the AIGA Design Educators Steering Committee at a national level. I think my claim to fame is really exciting there. I wrote the bylaws, super fun, preparing me to future dean. And then I served on the national board for a time, and I got to serve with Justin, which was pretty cool. So I think Justin and I met for the first time at my very first AIGA leadership retreat, and I was looking that up. It was in 2003.
And we have to tell that story later because that is a fantastic moment that we can share for sure.
For sure.
Oh, love to hear it. 2003, that was Austin,
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, impressive.
Eric.
I'm not going to
did you
remember
know?
where half of them were.
I have a cheat sheet.
Aha.
I like it.
I
I
have a
like
cheat
it.
sheet. I was not there. I mean, I'm talking like I was there, but I was not there.
No, that was a legendary retreat for AIGA, and we can talk about that. But that's when Clement Mock, released sort of the AIGA design process perspective, and I was sitting next to Jenn during that release, and it was pretty funny.
Fantastic.
Exciting. All right, Justin, you want to dig in?
Yeah, I became familiar with AIGA in college. I didn't really exactly know what it was, and I started my career in Arizona. And the Arizona AIGA was pretty small then, but incredibly active. So I joined, as a volunteer, and then was on the board. And my last assignment there, or was doing our first big design show, where we had speakers come in. It was what's it called? Good Design is Good Business little conference. Then I moved back to Chicago and I joined the board there and was on the board for a long, long time, and had done some things now and then for national. And then I think Jenn joined the board a year before me. I can't remember exactly, but then I was on national board, really to lift up the Design for Good perspective and initiative, and was on that board for a good amount of time. And I really enjoyed my time with that team. And then it was weird, after I left that board, it just sort of was crickets for a while, and I missed it, because honestly, I'm here with Jenn and Rachel, Eric, we just met, but because of AIGA. And so to me, it's a mystery how the younger generation is connecting, because without AIGA, I wouldn't be where I'm at, no doubt.
That's a very good point. We've been curious as well, throughout this podcast, like trying to understand where people are getting their community, their sense of community. And so, yeah, go ahead, Jenn.
I was just talking to colleagues at the university, and one just went to a stats conference, and he's a vice provost now. And so we're all a little removed from our disciplines because we're in the management of the university at this point. And he was so happy to be back at this conference full of people he was used to seeing for years and years. And we were all kind of wondering what's happening to junior faculty who don't get to do as much in person now because so much is online, and it just doesn't help you make the same kind of connections. And so I'm hoping things are, I think sometimes it feels easier to have that online thing and you can pop in and pop out of it. But the connections that I made in person at AIGA events have changed my life. Like, I'm going on vacation with Justin next week because of AIGA, and there's this like long path to it, but it's not just Justin and I are buddies. It's like our whole families are like family now. And I think that you don't get that kind of stuff from an online conference probably.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, a part of my routine, for the first 20 years of my career, was planning, going to the national retreat, going to the conference. Who are we going to see? What are we going to do? How many extra days am I going to stay? Where are we going to go? And to Jenn's point, what's interesting, I was thinking about this morning, our kids grew up together because we met and we took advantage of us, being together at different, places. And so, yeah, I owe AIJ a lot.
Same here. And the leadership retreats. I can tell you that I turned down being a bridesmaid to my cousin's wedding because it was on the same day as the Denver retreat, and I had to turn her down and said, I am not coming. She was so mad. But I'm sorry, like the leadership retreat is like a once a year thing. And there's just so much, I guess you'd call it FOMO. Like, I can't miss out. I need to be there with all of my family, per se.
Yeah, it was a really unique conference too. Like in a career of different conference experiences, that's the one where the buy-in was your work. That, like you had to have been hustling for an organization all year long to be like chosen to be one of the people that got to come. And then you had homework when you got home from it, right? Because you were spreading the message that you got at that leadership retreat out to the population of your chapter, to student groups and things like that. And so it was a really unique experience because I think everybody that was there felt sort of blessed to be there, but then felt like they were carrying something forward. And so there was a mission involved with it too. And it was really kind of beautiful.
It was so meaningful.
I loved being seemingly at the forefront of our industry's thinking and where it was going, what it was doing. And as a business owner, I love talking to other business owners there and just understanding how, their work was going, how projects were, what the climate was like. And I mean, that is an important part. But then, of course, catching up with everyone personally was brilliant.
Oh, the social and the cool. Like, everybody, you would sit there at the opening, and as you were listening, you could just like look across the rows and everyone had cool sneakers on, right? Like, I'd come home and I'd be like, I'm getting Adidas like that as soon as I get back. There was just this sort of like trend setting. I recently went to a conference for academic provosts and deans, and my only experience has ever been design conferences. So AIGA stuff like the leadership retreat that was really hands-on, or going and kind of listening as a participant. And this was great content, but it wasn't the crowd I was used to. There's moments when you're in a crowd of like, this feels like my people, and I felt like the weird one out because I think I had red shoes on one day or something. Like, everybody came to breakfast in a blue blazer. It was just a totally different experience than AIGA.
there's no pyramid making and doing shots at 1 a.m.
No, nary a pyramid.
Yeah.
Nary a pyramid.
Not yet, Jen. You can
Not
still
yet.
bring this to this
I can
community.
bring it.
You can bring it.
I was always a pyramid outsider, though. I'm kind of, Justin can tell you, like, children sing songs about me not being fun, so I've never gotten into the pyramid. I just sort of watch nervously.
My kids call her Safety Jen.
Oh my.
Oh.
Safety Jen.
We always, safety, as she says, safety never takes a vacation.
That's
So you
right.
always have to be prepared.
You always have
We'll
to
be safe
prepared.
next week.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will call out though. I remember some leadership retreat or something. I was not there at this leadership retreat. I did get a bunch of photos of Jen doing a presentation, and yet she showed a photo of me at the top of a pyramid in Grand Rapids on the bowling alley.
I believe I asked for permission to show that photo, and you were
Yes.
very gracious. I was like, I need a pyramid photo. Who would have one? Like, Rachel will have one for sure. And that was I think that was the Raleigh retreat, and we were trying to get everybody involved in the big Get Out the Vote campaign. And, it's back when we were trying to save democracy.
That was a great retreat, by the way.
It really was.
Yeah.
I think Matt Munoz,
Yeah.
it was
Munoz,
his backyard, and so that really
yeah.
helped.
We made him host us.
And he was probably happy to. I mean, he's another great leader.
I mean, don't
for
tell him I
the
said this, but he's not only a incredible dude, he's just a prince of a friend.
Aw,
He really is.
Yeah.
we won't tell him.
Well, we won't tell him.
It's just
Great.
on this podcast.
Perfect.
We won't say a word.
So let's talk about those retreats. You talked about Austin, you said Raleigh. What are some that can you tell us a little bit about your interaction or any stories of leadership or non-leadership maybe?
Jen, you keep me honest here on the Austin retreat.
Okay.
So we were at Austin. That wasn't my first one, but it was like my first one in leadership, because I think when I joined AIJ Arizona, we hosted it one year, but I didn't have any understanding of what it was. But I remember we both went to Clement Mock's presentation, and I don't remember what he said, but at one point, Jen and I looked at each other and we're like, "This guy's way smarter than everyone in this room times 100."
Yes. I
at
remember that exactly.
And we both started laughing. And at that point, I think we hung out the whole leadership retreat, just getting to know different things. But I was excited to have AIGA establish a process, like a design thinking process, because at that time, I think that, brand hadn't taken off as it has the last, 5-10 years, as far as people understanding it more than they have since I've been a professional.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved taking that process and applying it to our own wording and that sort of thing. But the whole weekend, I think we were just laughing on there were so many brilliant conversations going on, to Jen's point, like you'd sit down and you start talking to Clement and then you try to resist, to go skinny dipping with Mark English, and in his Jeep, he kept bringing hordes of people to the Austin River, I think, or somewhere. So it was just this great dichotomy of fun and brilliance and just tomfoolery. It was fantastic.
I remember seeing Mark English pull a person off of a woman was dancing on top of a pool table, and he was like, "No, too far. You dance on top of the bar. You never dance on top of the pool table,"
Yeah, that's great.
which never happens at the dean conferences, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't
Not
think.
yet. Not yet.
Yeah, it's always time. Yeah, my recollection of that conversation with Justin, it's one of the things I tell my students, because when students are getting ready to launch, I think they're so nervous, right? Like, how will I meet people and how will I connect? And so Justin and I were at a small group, and Clement was speaking, and maybe there were 30 of us in the room. So you were
Yeah.
at a table with people, and we just sort of lucked out to be at the same table. And we had shared some polite conversation at the table, but I got brave by the end of it. And it was a thing that I did in my 20s. I'd make myself say something at any big event I went to when it was question time. I'd be like, "Okay, get brave, get brave, get brave." And I'd write questions down, and then I'd be like, and say one thing. And
love
saying
that.
one thing at the end of Clement Mock talking, he was just so ahead of everyone in the room. He had such kind of intellectual ideas. And I think we were in a shift then from design being always so much about the style to really being about the strategy and the thinking behind it. And so it was a very academic approach in an audience. I think it was one of the last days of the retreat. And so people
Yeah.
had been partying all weekend, and you sat down, and I'm sure some people were pretty hungover at this like very intellectual, like professorial kind of conversation. And so after I spoke and asked my question, and Clement gave whatever answer he gave, I don't remember the Clement interaction. I remember the Justin interaction, because Justin was like, hey, thank you for asking that question when the conversation was done. A lot of people in the room had the same question, and you spoke really eloquently, and I really enjoyed talking to you today. And it was that little
Nice.
bit of kindness. So the next time Justin and I saw each other at a retreat, or it might have been we judged the Phoenix competition like a year or two
It
later
was.
with
Yeah.
Ken too.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's that nice guy that I met at the retreat. And then, like a year or two later, we were at, I think it was another leadership retreat in not Los Angeles,
Las
Nevada,
Vegas. Yeah.
Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And I was like super pregnant. Like I looked like if I walked too fast, I would have a baby. And I got to meet Sarah there. Like all of a sudden we started like crossing
My
each other's
wife.
paths regularly in social ways, and meeting up at the HOW conferences. And I think, RGD is another one of those design organizations that does a really great job with conferences. And that like connection through AIGA started to turn into a friendship. And it's just one of the like best friendships of my life. Super, super grateful for it. It truly feels in adulthood, I'm saying this idea of like the family we choose. And I think there's something really beautiful about that, because we're all kind of born into different groups of people, and some of us really luck out with that. And I have, but the ones that you get to pick and that pick you back are just something super special. And so it's been really neat all the way through. Thanks, Justin.
Oh, thank you. Seriously, it's this morning we're sitting around the table. I have 4 kids, and they were just talking about how excited they are to be with Jen, Ken, and their daughter Lulu next week. And so it was interesting that conversation came up on the morning that we're recording this podcast, right? And so I'm sure people meet in a bunch of different conferences, of course. I think what's unique about AIJ, especially leadership retreats, is you were there for several reasons. One, you were there to talk passionately about a profession that we all truly care about and love, and then also go out and passionately have a good time, no matter what you're doing. If you're building pyramids or going out or having dinner or whatever else. And there's not a leadership retreat I went to that I didn't come home with like a binder full of notes and a bunch of new friends. And my wife jokes around. We go on vacation. She's like, who do you know in that state that's a AIJ member? Because they're going to have a great restaurant list. Yes. And I think that's one of the things I feel sad for the younger generation. They don't have that access to, I could call anyone or text anyone that's in that town. They'll be like, oh, go to these 5 places. Don't go to that place. It's just one of the side benefits.
I think it's a benefit of being part of the leadership retreat. I mean, being a member and being a leader within a chapter, one thing. But if you were part of a leadership retreat, that's when that gold struck, right? That's when you got that benefit.
Yeah, they were such unique, curated experiences. Like I remember at Austin, we got to go to 2 places I would have never ventured to. One was the Salt Lick Barbecue, which was in a dry county. Like I felt like they bust in alcohol for AIGA to come into this county. Do you remember that, Justin? Like there were fire pits everywhere. It was like we're on a ranch.
Yeah, this location was like out of town in the desert, and it seemed like we were just being, desperados out there drinking when you shouldn't be drinking. It was fantastic.
It was really, I came home talking to Ken about it, and Ken that year for my birthday got barbecue from the Salt Lick, flown in for me. You could order it and came on dry ice and stuff. And then there was like a Texas line dancing thing. Like it was a circle. And I mean, that's way outside of my Clevelander experience. We have polka dancing in Cleveland. They probably have that in Chicago too, but we don't have Texas line dancing in a roadhouse. And so that was pretty cool stuff at my first leadership retreat.
I'm trying to remember what leadership retreat I went to that Debbie Millman was there, and we're at a karaoke bar, and she was trying to get me to sing, and then money started flying around. And then I think I went up and tried to do Baby Got Back or something.
Nice.
And I mean, think about the impact on my life right there. I mean, that's a special moment.
Seattle, represent.
That's right.
I have to give you one last Austin thing because
please.
This is how embarrassing I am. And so I'm just going to put it out on the internet and no one will see it.
Nice.
But so it's my first leadership retreat. We get there the first night. I'm like crammed in a hotel room with two of my buddies from the Cleveland chapter. And they're like, we got to go out. Everybody is going to this local bar and some band is playing. And I hear they're pretty good. And I was like, I got a new Harry Potter book, you guys. And this has just been a lot of people time for me. And so I'm just going to stay back here at the hotel and read. It was the White Stripes, you guys. It was the White Stripes in
Oh, wow.
2003, which I missed to read Harry Potter in my hotel room by myself. So don't leadership retreat that way. Like, do it better. And I grew. I met Justin and I kind of came out of my shell a little bit. I did that thing where I asked a question here and there. But
Which book was it?
I don't even remember.
Jenn, were you at the leadership retreat in Seattle that Terry Marks kind of
Didn't do
programmed and did a
Seattle, no.
bunch? Okay. That was one of my favorites just from all of the activities we did around there.
When was that? What year was that?
You don't have it on your list, Eric?
Well, 2002. This was the year before.
Oh, okay.
There you
It was
go.
the year before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was my first one. I met Jenn in my second one.
Seattle
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Terry's great.
Yeah, because that's when I started my love affair with Terry too.
He's
One of
wonderful.
One of the ultimate legends, human being.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fine human.
Yeah.
He is a fine human, and we just kicked off AIGA Seattle. We just resurrected it.
Awesome.
He came and welcomed everybody, so it was great. So there's a little momentum there.
Yeah. And I would say selfishly what I loved at the end of Jenn and my tenure on the national board is Terry was with us for a while. And that was fantastic.
Oh,
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
that's lovely.
Yeah, there's a lot of great like chapter leadership reunion by the time you made it to the national board. It was pretty cool. I was thinking as we were approaching this conversation, I was thinking about like what AIGA leadership had meant for me or the opportunities that it gave me. And it seemed to be this moment in my career where what I learned from what I was doing with the chapter became really applicable to my professional life. And so by the time I was done with the chapter presidency, I was a chair of a department in my university, and that was a like really, really good prep work for dealing with a lot of different constituencies and personalities and how I would work in a department setting. Um, and then I served on the national board for a while, and with the national board service behind me, I became an associate dean. And it's the same kind of thing. Like you can see the connectivity at the different leadership levels. And I was reflecting because I think there were moments early in my career, and maybe they always happen around AIGA, where like I feel like a very small fish in a big pond when I come to meet someone like Debbie Millman or Michael Beirut does a lecture, or it sometimes is so coastal dominant, big agencies. And the leadership retreat was always great because it was such a mix of every person from everywhere, and they were all really contributing at their local levels. And so now the college that I'm in, we have 15 departments, like 3,000 students, almost 200 faculty. It's a lot of like cats to herd and constituencies to serve. And some of those departments are really big and really established. And it reminds me of like the chapters like New York and Chicago and LA were like really big and they knew what they were doing. Some of them even had their own like executive directors and stuff. And then we've got tiny departments that might be like 3 to 5 professors, and those departments need really different stuff than the very big departments do, but we all kind of push forward under the same umbrella of service at the university. And I think my time in the chapter development and then my time at the national board, sort of seeing how that worked and how it got pushed out, made me better at the job that I do every day now. So again, I'm really grateful. Like the time with AIGA has felt like a second graduate degree to me.
Oh, well put. Well put. I'm curious, as an instructor, what are some of the biggest differences you see now compared to when you were a student, a design student?
Yeah, so to be fair, I have not taught in 3 or 4 years because I'm
Okay.
just administration now. But with 20 some years of teaching before that, I think it's just that they have to do everything faster now, and they have to do different things. So that idea of like a T-shaped professional, it's got like a really short bar and a really wide horizontal line right now. And I think social media is its own beast, and the technology changes all the time, and AI is going to come in, and we're trying to figure out how that works. but the foundation of training your eye and helping you understand what's going to resonate with an audience and learning how to do research. Like, I mean, when Justin and I were in school, for sure, I didn't have any classes about design research. The most tech I got was like a one web design class, probably, and in the software training at a very like Quark Express basic level. And
Oh, I
so
love Quark.
we spent a
Love Quark.
we spent a lot of
Miss it.
time on like structure and typography. And sometimes I feel like I'm hearing some old school folks lament like the type skills, and they may not be as strong as they used to be. I bet Rachel has a lot to say about this, but those poor students are learning like so many other things on top of it. And I feel like people used to notice when something had like inch marks instead of quote marks. And all of a sudden, everything's moving so fast, and nothing has the shelf life that it used to have. And so it's all kind of changing how critical our eyes are when we're looking at things.
Well put.
Justin, what are you seeing? Because you work with a lot of interns and young designers. Are you seeing something similar?
Yeah, I some things are the same, and and then also there's a lot to change, right? So like you said, we have an intern right now, and I sat down with her and we're talking about, and she's nervous about the future. And so, obviously those things don't change, but she had a lot of questions about AI and all that sort of thing. And the thing that was just really challenging for her is you have all the software, you don't have all the time at college to learn all the software, but yet you need to have that experience to be more hireable. And she said that there is a lot and it's moving fast, and she's talented. And so I just was giving her, support on how to pace it out, and also create a community of other students where they could commiserate and talk about, what someone's learned, and just kind of have a little bit of a group think in that sense. And I was thinking like little tiny AIGA pockets, right? Because that's one of the many things I loved is I could go and talk to other professionals, right, that were doing their thing as a designer out in the world, and find out, where their challenges or struggles, and resource each other and that sort of thing. And so I think the resourcing each other, especially for that, that younger generation is challenging, because I think they think they're going to learn online, or, maybe they'll ask AI or whatever. And I'm going to be interested to see if there's parts of that foundational eye that just moves because of how fast things go.
Yeah, I think we're at a weird time right now, honestly. Not only design has gone through all sorts of challenges. Just the advent of the internet and digital and pulling away from print. That really disrupted our industry for sure. But with AI and the loss of these communities, I think it's going to be tougher. Hopefully I'm wrong. And people will find their way, or maybe the industry will shape its way around this, and people will be able to figure out how to connect and learn from each other. But right now, it just feels so disparate. Like I was talking to a friend in terms of like design heroes. When we went to AIGA leadership retreats, we could all name our design heroes pretty easy, because all you had to do is like reference the design annuals, right? Like I knew
Right.
who was in there, who was winning all the time. And then we had social media. So who knows design heroes in my classrooms when I was teaching? They didn't have the same design heroes as I. It was people who had Instagram accounts and whatnot. And now I don't really know if there is a shared inspirational person, or people are looking toward. Maybe Jenn, since you're closer to students now, and the student body, maybe you would know. But right now, I don't know if there's any alignment or community feeling between emerging designers.
Yeah, I'm not sure I know the answer to that. And again, like it's been just being out of the classroom for
Yeah.
3 or 4 years, it's like a world of difference. But one of the things that I found in the last time I taught was that the annuals gave us like shared reference of what good looked like. And there were a lot of different versions of good, and styles kind of came and went. I always used to say, if you see like a big bank on a billboard using a typeface you've really liked, that's the end of it. And so it's time to put that typeface down, right? Like the display font down. But I feel like what I would do with them before we started a complex project is make them do little micro, like Pachacucha style presentations where they had to find a similar project. So if we were designing packaging, they had to go find out, and I would give them a handful of packaging competitions and say, find something, and you're going to do just a 2-minute presentation on why this caught your eye. And so we'd have a class period where they all had to practice standing and talking about why they liked something, and they had to pick the best images. And then we had a class website, and that stuff would sit there. So if they wanted to look at it, they could. But it gave us this collective, everyone participated, but this is what good looks like. And on the classes and the projects that I did that in, the work that came through next, it didn't necessarily mirror or mimic, but it was raised a little bit. Like they had seen a level of what this is supposed to look like, because most of these kids just see memes all the time. Like it's crappy meme type, and it's one image and it happens really fast. And, there's like a moment for that. But when you have to design something complex and those things still need to be done, the meme thinking doesn't help.
Yeah, I would say what's interesting to me, what I see is you have designers like Tad Carpenter, who has a really great Instagram personality. And then I love Alan Peters. He does this thing on Instagram and where he'll look at a logo that exists and he'll redesign it. And what I love about that is that it's showing the process of thinking and how there's other possibilities. And so I have a feeling, and again, this is just a guess, that, that is kind of their annual now, right? Is going and finding these people with following and looking at what they're doing. And so I think it's there. It's just shifted. It's different.
It is, but it's also not critical. So again,
Right.
like I'm not trying to say, hey, doom and gloom on the future. I'm just wondering, how are people finding good design? How are they understanding what is like great representations of classic visual communication, rather than what's popular or what just comes up in your feed by the algorithm?
Yeah.
It's a great question, and I'll say from my experience, it's a great way to tank your interview. If you ask people, if you ask them who their design heroes are, it's interesting because sometimes the conversation just kind of pauses, and there's like this, well, what do you mean by design heroes?
Mhm.
What do you mean by that? In what sense? And so, I've learned to, who inspires you? What inspires you?
Right.
Changing the framing of that question, rather than a particular person. It's a what? It's an amorphous thing. It's well, I saw this, and this inspired me to do this.
The wonderful thing I found about AIGA leadership retreats, not only are you connected to the rest of the leadership across all the nation's chapters, is that we would have access to those design heroes. I mean, people at all different levels, those who are fully accomplished, those who are just starting out and emerging. Everybody was there together, kind of on the same level, and you got to know them as humans rather than looking in the annuals or whatever they're, I met Tad Carpenter, and he's got a great Instagram, but I met him as a person, which changed things for me and made me realize, okay, I can get there. The gap between me and what he does is not that large. And so, yeah, I mean, again, design heroes might not be the right way to put it, but the fact that you can tap into a network where you have access to humans who can do great things makes you feel better, makes you feel supported.
Yeah, I agree. I think the design hero term is probably part of what the AIJ got heat for over the years, right? Because
Right.
we would often, sort of lift up the same individuals. And I would say one of the bright spots of now, and again, Rachel, you know me, I'm always half full, is that you are able to, sort of level set, right? And look at, more voices out there. I would say that the difference is what is good and what is not good. Right? Who's helping give input on that, or who's, sort of the guiding star on that. And I think that's interesting. And that could maybe be my old school thinking. But there's times where if I can remember when I was a younger designer, I wanted to be exposed to things that were good and inspiring. And to your point, when I was able to, I'm a huge Kit Hinrichs fan. The AIJ gave me an opportunity to invite him to our Good Designs, Good Business conference. And I ended up getting to pick him up at the airport and just talk to him. And to your point, I was just like, as crazy as it sounds, for some reason, I just didn't see some of those individuals having the same challenges I had, and they absolutely did. So
Yeah.
that is one of the gifts of the retreats, leadership retreats, is you get to talk to people and that you read about, watch about, even maybe studied in school, and now you're having, conversations or, exchanging emails and texts so you can talk about life and business, and that's just incredibly special.
I think that there's a great like equalizing factor, and that's what we're all getting at, that you were in the same room with all these people that you'd maybe only read about previously. And I think when I was involved, like in the early 2000s, first getting into it, there were definitely like hero strata, and so I agree with Justin that that may be something over the years AIGA took some heat for, and I might have shoveled some of that heat out. Like there should be a dignity to what we're all doing. And so I'm from Cleveland. It's not a place that anyone thinks cool, but they should. And when you come to Cleveland, I'll take you for a tour of all the cool stuff at it. Justin knows where all the cool things
I'm
in
a I'm
Cleveland
a
are.
I'm a part of the fan club. I love Cleveland.
Yeah. We've got a representative over the years, Sherrod Brown, and he is just recently out of the Senate, but he had this dignity of work tour, and that was language that he used, and it was that everyone's job, no matter where it was at, was really meaningful to them. And I'm loving the Bear right now because I also love Chicago. And I think one of the things that showed us so beautifully is show like all these different individuals' perspective and how much they love and care about their part of the job. And so I think that when I was seeing AIGA work the best as an organization, it was when it respected that chapter level leadership, because every chapter has its own abilities and resources. And some of the big, shiny, well-funded ones showed us amazing things, but so did the chapters in the middle of nowhere. Because at one point, I think there were more than 50, right? Like every state had a chapter or multiple chapters in it. And when you came together at the leadership retreat, you never knew who you were going to be with at a lunch or a dinner, and you learned something from them. And there's something really beautiful about seeing people like do what they do best. And you got to see that with a whole group of people from a lot of different flavors of the country. And there was this like dignity of work moment. And I think when AIGA veers from that, like through the many we're a whole, that's when we're maybe off path.
100%. And no comment as well.
Yeah, notes. No notes.
No.
No comment. Hey, Justin, I wanted to ask you because Jenn already addressed this, but what did you learn from your AIJ leadership experience and how did it translate into what you're doing now?
From the very first time where Jenn asked that question, I took away a couple of things. Well, one was if I wanted to connect and learn, I needed to be brave / vulnerable / open to just authentically sharing where I was, right? And I think initially, my first retreat or two, I went in there thinking I had to act or speak a certain type or perspective. And I think it was maybe the third or fourth retreat I went on, and I realized that there was people that were coming on, and I had an opportunity to welcome them and bring them in. And then I was also able to be vulnerable and talk to other leaders and see that they're having some of the same challenges. So what I learned, there's a plethora of things I've learned. One, it's we're better in community. We're made for community, regardless of profession, but especially in our profession, we're made for community. And so if I want that to happen, I need to play my part. So that was the first big thing I learned. The second thing is that there are times, and this is an ego-driven profession at some level, right? Because think about it. Tell me a profession where you show your client something every day, and part of what you show is trashed, right? 3 directions, or only pick one. But everyone experiences that, right? And so I needed to come to the retreats open to learn and not think that I was something other than a person. And maybe that's just unique to me, but that was something that I really wanted to be open to. I wanted to, if I talked to Michael Beirut, I want to tell him the cool things I was doing, right? But he doesn't care. He was just there to, support an organization and have a conversation. So that was huge. And then the final thing, a big thing, and this is something that Jenn and I care about immensely, is helping people move forward. What is the legacy of our profession, and how can we help others move forward and do it better than we did? be resourced and to continue to grow. And that's one of the things that I see now, that I feel responsible in some ways, and as crazy as it sounds, that, as the world shifted and AIGA shifted, I wish I could have, I don't know, done more or something to continue to help something that was so valuable to my life, both professionally and personally. And so that's really why I joined the board. Is I said, if I ever get a chance to join the board, I want to pay it forward of all the things that AIGA did for me. And so those are all kind of a combination of things that I bring in, not only to my running my agency, but also when I talk to my kids about when you're going out into the world and networking and everything else.
I love that intentionally shedding of the ego in order to pay it forward and bring stuff to the community. That's great. That's great.
All right,
We're talking about. Oh, I'm sorry, Rachel. Just one more insight. We were talking about,
Yeah.
Justin said he talks to his kids about things. I feel like so much of what you do as a parent kind of comes from who you were maybe as a young professional and how you were learning, and then you try and share the things you were learning. And I've told Lulu over the years, try and have friends who are like doing as well as you are or a little better. Like, be around people that inspire you, be around people that like you keep hustling for. The leadership retreat was like that. You always knew you were going to go once a year and run into people, and you had to have some story of what you were doing too. You weren't trying to be like the shiniest person in the room, but you didn't want to look like a slouch either. And I think being friends with people like all of you, everyone I met on that national board, like it's scary being the girl from Cleveland walking into a room like that sometimes. And it kept me on my toes. And I'm trying to relay that to my students when I'm in the classroom. I'm trying to relay it to Lulu right now, that you want to surround yourself with people who are hustling and who are like good and charismatic and connecting. And I think for this generation, like we peeked back to the question I think Eric had about students right now, they have a really hard time connecting, sometimes with eye contact. Sometimes, like, we can talk about all the things that, social media and cell phones in their hands all the time. But I think the students who are going to move forward, wherever AI takes the job markets and all the different job markets, they're going to be the ones that have this interpersonal skill. And that's a thing I think almost all of them have to learn how to train, because interpersonal, like charisma at school, is different than it is in the workforce. And so, even if you want to hide with your Harry Potter book and there are moments where you let yourself do that, I think you have to kind of train yourself to also the next day, like, raise your hand and ask a question when you're afraid. And AIGA helped me practice all that stuff.
I think not only was it a built-in community, but also we saw that there was a benefit on the other side of that, right? The
For
fact
sure.
that you had to get out of your room and mingle with people, very scary. However, you are in a room that everybody supports you. And if you get involved in these organizations and communities, they will support you through all sorts of things. I've seen ups and downs. I've seen people move from jobs to jobs, to states, and we all are aware of it because we're all supporting our network, our community, right? And I don't know, I just hope that the younger generations realize that there is a benefit, and that's what you should focus on, and not necessarily yourself or your, whatever you're going through internally. Remember that it benefits you, your future self, basically. Yeah.
I will say one more thing too, Rachel, that
Yeah.
I took away from AIGA, and that was the ability to see taking big swings with things that you believe in.
Yeah.
And that, some of the work we did, like for Design for Good and everything else, I don't know if I ever would have done it had it not been to, like Jenn's point, hey, we're going to talk about this thing. Now we need to make it happen because we talked about it and we committed to it. And I think that was a great motivator, one, but two, it was also a great way to understand you can't do it by yourself. And so you need to use a community to bring it to life. And we shifted a lot of the things that we do at work based on a lot of those conversations. And I, like to Jenn's point, I think it was a second degree in understanding the power of our community. Think about from the voting to Design for Good to whatever other initiative that we were doing as a as an organization that they're dramatically changing me as a person, but also with the work we did.
I'm glad to see both of you still interacting, still vacationing together. I mean, I know that through this network, through this community, I've found lifelong friends. I mean, on Monday night, I had dinner with David Asari, Don Zadonis, and JP, and they were even talking about you, Jenn. So, we
I
are
love
just,
those guys.
I just think it's lifelong friends, lifelong support, and the community still means a lot to me. I hope that future generations continue to have the support that we found in our golden era. All right, we're almost out of time, but I don't know if you guys want to talk about Raleigh.
I will say that the Raleigh retreat was the best one because Matt Munoz knew every restaurant in town, and he would get a table for 10 to 20 people. Like, I don't know how he magicked it because I can't get a table in my hometown for 10 to 20 people on short notice, but somehow he pulled it off every meal. So again,
Because
Matt Munoz.
he's handsome and charming.
He really
That's
is.
for sure.
He's
That
terribly
retreat
handsome.
that retreat was huge for me personally because that's when we started to release the Path to Impact that I had worked on with the team at AIGA, and that was really, really phenomenal because we'd been talking about it for, I don't know, a couple of years, and we released it. I believe it was that retreat. I'm almost positive it was that retreat. And then I think later that year we had the hard copy shipped to a national and released it more. But yeah, that was a incredibly fun. But talking about getting on stage and talking about this in front of everyone, I was both super proud of the team because I did it with a team, right? And but also nervous about not messing it up.
I think that the project that I was involved in that one was the Get Out the Vote initiative. So it was like Justin was saying, I had to get up there on stage in front of everyone. It was my first time speaking on the stage at a leadership retreat. And what really helped me was Kit Hinrichs and Francis came up, and Francis had on like almost like a WWE style, like Uncle Sam pants, like sparkly blue, red, white, and blue outfit. And Karen came in a giant slice of pizza, like it was a big foam Halloween costume of pizza. And so I was like so nervous, like ironed Brooks Brothers shirt, like ready to give this formal presentation. And those two walked up like that with me, and I was like, okay, I got this. This is just fine.
I actually remember that morning. You guys were off on the side having coffee, and I came up to talk to you to wish you good luck. And you're like, I'm getting ready.
I can't right now. I'm in the zone. But it also taught me about scale, right? Because our goal was every member of AIGA should be registered to vote. Like if you just went back as a chapter leader and tried to get I think at the time, maybe Cleveland had 200 members or something. Like, could you try really hard to get those 200 people registered to vote? And then when those people were registered to vote, if they could each get like 2 people to register to vote, but you could see the snowball effect. And we gave small kind of low-hanging fruit things that chapters could do, or really big, like someone like San Francisco, where Dawn was spending like all her time and energy to work towards initiatives. They would have the power to do something bigger, right? Or Augustine Garza was friends with Edward James Olmos, and between the two of them, they had like more Spanish language commercials about voting, and the AIGA poster became like a mainstream public information thing. Like it was amazing what he pulled off, where I was like, I made a poster in Cleveland. But we were able to do so many different levels and scale it up so that anybody could grab a part of it. And that to me is still like when I'm in my job and I'm talking to 15 departments of varied resources or time, they can all kind of take an idea and pick a part of it because of the scaling that I learned through AIGA work.
Yeah, everyone can make an impact. And thank you
Yep.
both so much for all the
sure.
impact that you have given us through the years, not only in the leadership retreats, but just seeing you guys go through and making such an impact in the community. So thank you.
No, thank you.
Where is vacation for you guys? Where are you meeting?
South Haven, Michigan. We call it
Okay.
in between, right? Because in between Cleveland and Chicago is really like the middle of Indiana, and we're going to go to Michigan instead and stay on
Okay.
It's
little
a
beach
beach.
house.
So yeah, we rented a big house right by the beach, and so we'll all just kind of be out there and love and make fun of each other at the same time.
Yep. Lots of
Fantastic.
family movie nights. We started the kids with Jaws when they were like 5, so we'll try and keep that tradition
No, wait a
going.
second. By the way, Jen, I have to tell you a quick story. So we were at the movie theater with my son Jack, and it's the 50th anniversary of Jaws. And we're watching. He turns to me. He's like, hey, you remember when Miss Jenn played that? And I was like, yeah. I was like, it terrified me when I went into the bar. And I was like, you got to tell her that, make her feel guilty. Yeah.
We're going to unpack guilt.
Yeah.
It's going to be amazing.
Well, have a great vacation.
Thanks,
thank
man.
you.
Very much. It's so
Appreciate
nice.
Thanks for doing this. We appreciate you.
Yep.
Same. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Cheers and Tears will be back next time with more design leadership tales retold.
Please subscribe, rate, review, and share this podcast with your creative community, design leaders, and friends.
Cheers and Tears Design Leadership Tales Retold is a production of Chapter 2 and hosted by us, Rachel Elner and Eric Cargill. This episode was produced and edited by Rachel Elnar. Podcast graphics by Eric Cargill. Animation by Verso Design and Megatow Design.
The theme music track is Loose Ends by Silver Ships Plastic Oceans. Follow Cheers and Tears on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube podcasts, or wherever you get your audio and video podcasts. Subscribe to our email list at cheersandtears.com so you don't miss an episode.